voice coil issues. There you go, haters. Fortunately, our challenger has also arrived.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
One of the bigger surprises number-wise in this channel in the last few years was Sloppy Speaker Showdown, where I compared these cost-cutter Logitechs with their notably more well-built predecessors from probably close to 10 years ago at this point. And yeah, they are what they are, $30 speakers, even if the $30 price tag was maintained by any means necessary. But I was poking fun at them because of their build quality and stuff like that, and some people were mad at me in the comments, probably people who own these speakers, and like, what, they're not so bad? And yeah, I agree. My style was a little bit more brusque back then, and I wasn't really giving these things much of a chance. But now that I've used them, I think they're pretty decent speakers for their price point, particularly when it comes to power draw. These things, I only got them, I kilowatted them, and then I put all kinds of loud music through them, and I couldn't get them to draw more than 1 watt. Grand total. That's awesome! That means that I can use these things as television replacement speakers for when I don't want to crank the main system, like when I'm trying to keep things quiet at night, get decent mid-range sound that's good enough for television, and basically it doesn't matter if I forget to turn the speakers off because they only draw watts. Grand total! That's awesome! I only wish I could have seen that back when I was growing up, throwing these cheap speakers into a bookshelf to get some decent sound out of them because of hollow plastic. Kind of makes you think about the whole bookshelf speakers thing. Anyways, yeah. When I was growing up, I didn't have any money. It was a very different world back then, but we shall not reminisce on stuff like that. Anyways, these are the bedroom pair that I've been using for, you know, like background music and sounds to fall asleep with and stuff. And after a few too many nights of 10-hour white noise, it looks like I've caused some voice coil issues because they have this thing where they start making voice coil noise, like scratchiness and stuff. So anyways, since it looks like I'm looking at perhaps a cone replacement project in these things at best, let's check out the new Walmart alternative. So every so often, Walmart apparently tries to jettison their image as a cheap stuff store, and I think all this Blackweb stuff that I've been seeing in their stores is that latest attempt. I don't know if it's a snazzier store brand or some other private label or something like that, but now there are, you know, computer speakers that don't have subwoofers, basically competitors to these two that have surfaced in their stores. So let's compare them. Keep in mind, though, I don't buy computer speakers anymore. I'm not a connoisseur of them, unless it's for niche stuff. Is it niche or niche? Whatever, man.
Epic fail.
I'm still waiting for the coffee to kick in, and I'm a night shift guy. Righto! So yeah, except for niche applications like this. Cue the epic fail screen.
Epic fail.
So I have a very simple philosophy. If you want good sound, you get a real system. Otherwise, you get little sound-creating appliances like these. Let's see how good they are. What are they bragging about on the box? Power bass. In those little tiny things? Yuck, yuck, yuck. Bass and volume control, and it can take something from an MP3 player. Are you listening, Apple? Those little plugs are still used for things. I'm never gonna let them live that down, that's for sure. Ooh, 3.5mm input. Power bass. Bass and volume control and MP3 input. So basically, they just got rid of the pictures to print the exact same stuff on the back of the box. Whatever, man. We're only gonna gawk at the box for so long. What the heck do they look like, and what the heck do they sound like? Is it anywhere close to the picture? Hey, a man can dream, can't he? Rejoice, oh ye neo-hippie types! The packing material isn't styrofoam! Woohoo! Recycle! Actually, that's a good thing. It does the job without wasting styrofoam. There is some plastic on the speakers, though, to keep them from getting scratched. I mean, look how shiny they should be according to the picture. And cute little, you know, instruction doohickey. Yeah, right. Like I'm gonna need the instructions with something this basic. I need to wash my mouth about anti-scratch plastic. Ooh, shiny. Are these really two-way? I should get a flashlight. So yeah, fingerprint magnet front, and yeah, let's see here. Actual use of metal, like the old Logitechs, and 2 solid feeling knobs-ish. They're still plastic, though. Things on the front, and of course, fingerprint magnet, shiny, shiny, shiny! They're for drivers. That's gotta be a flappy mid-range. That's gotta be a fake tweeter. Right, well, let's see what they sound like. What kind of mid-range miracles can we get out of these things? These do feel pretty solid, but one speaker is way heavier than the other. This one is very heavy compared to this, which means, of course, the amp, the power supply, and most importantly, the power transformer are inside this thing, because it takes direct AC. Not looking good for the power draw versus our 1-watt champions over there. Is that a port, or is that fake? Hey, whatever helps with the bass. Although with the different insides of this, oops, versus that, I'm guessing, is there better bass out of one speaker than the other? Well, they're certainly easy to knock over.
Epic fail.
First off, the most biased control in the world. We're going to be using You're No Help by Silent Partner, which is a 70s-ish sounding song with a lot of mid-range and some nuanced stuff available in the YouTube audio library, unless of course it's gone, I don't know. I've had this thing downloaded for a while, and apparently there are some songs that get taken off the library at some point. I don't know. Anyways, we're going to do a ridiculously biased control with my real system with real speakers and actual replaceable parts. The bass actually goes to the subwoofer, and two 5 1/4 woofers in the front for mid-bass. And of course I've got monoprice bookshelves paired up in series with some old satellites from Eclipse Pro Media 5.1, whatever. That is not a good control whatsoever, but hey, it's a good starting point. Of course, we can always go too far in the other direction and just play straight out of the smartphone speaker. Big surprise, it sounds like you're listening to hold music on a speakerphone. You don't say!
Epic fail.
Alright, first off, a redux of the late 2000s Logitechs that still work. These things have been chugging along for the better part of a decade, despite being in this same price class all those years ago. They have a real power supply, aka not running off of some cell phone doohickey, and without even being turned on, they're pulling a watt. So, yeah, this is why I brought these over to the project area and stopped using them in my installations. It might be, you know, splitting hairs and stuff like that, but let's put some volume to these things and see what happens. Phone? There we go. The phone turned down the volume as a protection for my hearing when I plugged something into the headphone jack. Wait a minute.
Epic fail.
Try number 2 now that Nanny Phone Maker has been dealt with. Make sure repeat's turned on as well. So there's a decent chunk of lows, but not any lower than what your average mid-bass would have at this size. I also know that these are drone cones, so all they're doing is just flapping with the air in the case being moved by this thing. Their successors do the same thing. It'll be interesting to see what those Blackwebs do. But if we jack the volume all the way, we can bump up against the 5 to 6 watt mark. I think it has to do with how much the cones are actually flapping though, so it might be worth putting some white noise through these things or something. Regardless, it's listenable. And that's really all that these types of speakers can do. Give you some sound somewhere. If you want to have good sound, you gotta invest a little bit more than just plug it in and turn it on. Next up, these troopers. They've just been chugging along ever since I made fun of them because I thought they were cheaply built. Well, they are cheaply built, but they perform pretty well for being cheaply built. Like not having any standby power draw. Woohoo! And no standby amp draw either. I just cranked the volume all the way. Ooh, 0.3 watts. Woohoo! Put some stuff through these things and hope they don't make too much, yeah. Oh, I can hear some of the... I hear a little bit of scratchiness. So they don't go as loud. Let's check Nanny Phone here. Yep, Nanny Phone is up all the way. So they don't go as loud. That's the biggie. But I'm having a hard time cracking the 1 watt mark. That's all the way up, ladies and gentlemen. As far as the sound quality goes, it is a little bit more refined. It sounds a tad less like cheap speakers than their predecessors. And that's what people were complaining about in the comments. They're like, come on, dude, give those things a chance. Why don't you do something besides bash them? Well, I am doing something besides bashing them now that I've broken them in and used them a bit. Yeah, not a bad set of speakers. It's just that a couple of nights of 10-hour help you sleep type noises kind of cooked the voice coils a bit. You didn't hear it there, but if you ran these things for a couple hours on end just playing sounds and music or whatever, or even just a noise type thing to help you sleep, they'd eventually start making scratchy noises and stuff like that. Yeah, mod project waiting to happen. Now, it's time to bring the Blackwebs into the fray. Okay, these things are hooked up. No standby power draw, but that's because these speakers have a hard switch on the back. You can't turn them off by just turning the volume all the way down. That makes them somewhat useful for a bedroom speaker setup where you're constantly reaching behind the speaker to turn them on and off, but that immediately makes these things useless in a television setup because there's not a lot of room on my desk, so I don't want to be constantly having to pull these things out to turn them on and off. Let's turn them on without putting any sound through them. 1 amp, 1 watt, 2.3 watts. So there is standby power draw, much like with the old Logitechs. I got a feeling these things are going to be comparable to the old Logitechs. They certainly resemble them with how they were built with actual metal and stuff. Plus, I got to find out if these tweeters are fake. I'm sure they are. Alright, let's put some sound through these things. Yeah, turn the volume up. Tinny as all heck. But that's because the bass knob is turned all the way down. Much better. Crank it all the way. 2.6 watts grand total. So it's better power-wise than the old Logitechs, but the interesting thing is, I think these edge this out a bit, because, yeah. So just kill the power. Ooh. Wait a minute. Oh, so the amps make a little bit of noise after you kill the power. Listen to that. Ladies and gentlemen, cheap electronics at its goofiest.
Epic fail.
Ah, Walmart, what hast thou sold me? Right. Yeah, I think I might have a new set of speakers for the project area because I need sound over here and that's about it. So splitting hairs, those 5 watt thingies might be better. Well, the reason I had the 5 watt thingies over here is because I could hard switch them off when I killed the power at the power strip. But these things negate the need for that. So, right. So, let me answer a few of my side questions first about whether or not that tweeter is fake and stuff like that. Put the power back on. As predicted, fake. There is no sound coming out of that whatsoever. All the work is done by this driver right here. So the big thing is, it's hard to put into words, but there's a sound, turn them down to like half volume or so. There's a sound that I associate with cheap speakers. It's not exactly no highs, no lows, holy crap, it must be Bose, but it is something along those lines. I would not pick these over the cheap Logitechs to be television replacement speakers. They don't have the sound quality for it. Most likely because, let me answer my other question I had about these things. Let's crank everything up again. The case is rattling, but I don't feel any air coming out of this. But I'm sure that there is nothing resembling bass reflex or anything of that sort. And I think that's where the sound quality difference comes from. These things have a brighter sound, but it's not like actual tweeters, and they have bass, but it's not like the sort of mid-bass you'd want to have in a setup like this. They have bass, but it's not really mid-bass like these. So, if it's a showdown between these Walmart specials and these Logitechs, I'd still go with the Logitechs. These things may look cheap, but I think, you know, that they're a descendant of those, which had drone cones to handle the air and make bass out of it inside the horrible little case. But if I had to compare, it's just, they don't win on power efficiency. These things don't win on power efficiency versus the cheap Logitechs. They don't win on volume versus the old Logitechs, and they don't win on sound quality versus either. So yeah, like I said, these are, like I called these little 2.0 computer speakers earlier, a sound-generating appliance. They're useful for when you need sound, and that's about it. Doesn't have to be all that high-quality sound, but it's kind of like, you know, radios. Little portable radios with terrible sound that you'd listen to, you know, just to listen to someone blabber about the weather or something. You know the sound's not going to be great. But I think these do have some mod project potential because these look like somewhat standardized speaker cabinets. I wonder what we could do with these things if we put some padding inside of them and swapped out these cones for something higher quality. Definitely less proprietary, though, than those cheap Logitechs were with that whole tuxedo-ish look they're going for and stuff like that. But for the time being, I'm going to keep using these Logitech Z-Series cheapo speakers as my television replacement speakers because these have not earned that title, largely due to their lack of quality and lack of efficiency. Definitely mod bait, though. And I suppose while everything's all quiet, let's turn the speakers off with no sound going through them and still see if they make that noise if the amplifier's being starved of power. Okay. So just turn off the audio before you kill the power and you won't get those weird noises. Whatever. And I suppose while we're really messing around with stuff, let's bust out these Logitech 2.1s because I think they're still on sale. So, picked these up a few years ago out of curiosity, and it looks like Logitech's still selling these, and Cyber Acoustics has a set out as well. But this is the kind of stuff that I thought was good sound back when I was in college, and I was an idiot that didn't know anything about good sound. Because you get this so-called subwoofer type thing with a little 4-inch speaker inside an echoey poof box that only has any weight to it because of the amplifier and power supply, but they put a port on it that gives it more bass. You get older, you get wiser, but just out of curiosity to see how things are going with these types of things these days, I picked up these so-called loud techs out of curiosity and ran them in the kitchen for a bit for music and stuff like that. Okay, if Nanny Phone's not gonna get in the way, which the volume's cranked on the phone all the way, let's get something going. First off, 2-watt standby power. Actually, pause the music. If we turn the amp, switch on the amp here, then we get up to 5 watts and then back down. Crank the volume all the way, and it still stays at 4.5 when there's nothing going through it. Let's see, yep. Starts flirting with the 10-watt mark at max volume. But of course, it has an actual subwoofer. Well, subwoofer. Oh boy, oh boy. There are reasons why I joke about these things being subwoofers. We'll go into that some other time. But they have a wider cutoff,
so to speak, between the lows and epic fail.
Killed the SD card in the camera by messing with crappy speakers. And by SD card, I mean this scotch-taped hack job that was using a piece of a paper clip for the read-only tab. Whatever.
Epic fail.
Me being a cheap-ass and not buying new SD cards in a timely fashion aside, where were we? Oh, it helps turn the speakers back on.
Epic fail.
So there's a bit of a wider disconnect, so to speak, between the low end and the high end with these things. So that's the thing. You can tell at the high end of things that they don't have tweeters. They just have these aluminum phase plugs. And at the low end, you can tell it doesn't have a real subwoofer, it just has a flappy speaker and a poof box. And if you crank the volume all the way up, it might hit the 10-watt mark. But hey, once upon a time I was a dumb college kid who thought anything sounded good. Okay, before we go testing every single piece of speaker, doohickey, whatever that's floating around out there, yeah, this is apples and oranges. This thing has a so-called subwoofer, and the 2.0s don't. But the Blackwebs have some potential. Now, the thing is, most of what I've been listening to at night is like help you sleep type noise and stuff. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is these Blackwebs are going to go and play those 10-hour sounds that break in the speakers and eventually break the speakers and become mod project fodder for later if I can blow out the cones in these terrible things. The cheap ones are a mod project as it is right now. I don't know what I'm going to do with these ones with the subwoofer. Maybe make them the new project area speakers. And I definitely don't know what I'm going to do with the old Logitechs that don't have a subwoofer. Cheap speakers, man. Cheap speakers. It makes more sense to build an actual system with replaceable parts. But if you buy too many pairs of these cheapos, you start getting a bit of a, a problem from having too many cheap speakers. Anywho, I'm not here to complain about my problem of too many cheap speakers, so let's wrap this up. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
Support the wackiness? Visit patreon.com/MultimediaJay.